So thanks again to everyone who's joined. Just to reintroduce myself for anyone who has joined in the last few minutes, my name is Jan Cook, and I'm the Practice Director for voquzlabs in the UK. I have with me Francisco Hansen, who is Global Advisory Director, who will be presenting with me today.
Hey, this is Francisco. Welcome, everyone. I'm pleased to see so many attendants. And yeah, welcome to our webinar. Just please be aware that you can use our questions function there. If you want to put your questions in between, I'll be looking onto it and see that we get them answered during the webinar. Or if we don't get to it, just send you an email afterwards and answer your questions. Have a good time with us. Hello, Jan. We can't hear you if you're speaking.
Yes, indeed. Yes, to reintroduce myself and Francisco. We had a German version of the webinar earlier, hosted jointly by Peter Ratti, Managing Director, who's contributed to the content of this webinar today. Also, if you're interested to read about the latest changes in the SAP licensing landscape, voquzlabs have an excellent blog covering every possible topic around SAP licensing, and that's updated regularly with new articles that make for interesting reading. So if you want to visit our blog, go to voquzlabs.com/blog. A quick overview of accompanying products, just to put in context the business and who we are and why we're talking about this subject today. So the history of voquzlabs, we were started up in 1980. In 2010, we launched our samQ License Manager product, entered into global expansion around 2015, launching the software into the German and US markets. In 2018, we launched samQ Authorization Manager, which is an SAP security software tool. And today we have offices globally in excess of 400 customers around the world, 25,000 SAP systems optimized. And we're a specialist in SAP licensing and authorization solutions. So certainly have handled many SAP contract and S4HANA negotiations, and that's the basis of what we're going to discuss today. We're going to reflect on our experience of having handled many such negotiations and try and impress upon you some of that knowledge, so you understand the S4HANA contract migration landscape a little better. Quick overview of the offices. Obviously, we're represented in offices in Mexico and New York, in the Americas. In the United Kingdom, we have offices in Romania, Germany, Great Britain, and Netherlands, and also down in Cape Town, South Africa. We have worked with hundreds of SAP customers across a multitude of different sectors. So we've done contract negotiation and S4HANA purchasing support for customers across many different industry sectors, so we know them well. That would include tech, pharma, vehicle, automotive, retail, food, household and consumer, oil and gas and energy, and many more. The solutions we offer, we have samQ License Optimizer, which helps customers with named user license cost optimization, indirect access, and automated engine measurement. Also some really good functionality in there for helping customers manage some of the S4HANA license migration scenarios. Our samQ software solution helps customers centralize and manage their role and authorizations concept, helps improve efficiency with request and approval via our web-based workflow manager platform. Also helps customers with SOX and SOD compliance, risk tracking and remediation. Helps customers automate roles and improve processes around things like user password management. So two very complementary solutions. And on the advisory side of things, we offer services actually leveraging our own tool. Our advisory practice use our samQ and samQ solutions to deliver services around cost optimization and compliance to SAP customers. Here are some of the service offerings that we have, which include license optimization, digital access risk assessment, engine usage measurement, review of SAP contracts, audit defense, contract negotiation, and resolution of licensing conflicts. So these are all a kind of sample of some of the key services we offer to customers. Our mission and value proposition, well, we know the biggest contracts in the SAP world, having worked with some of the biggest SAP customers globally. We negotiate many more contracts a year than any of our clients do, and so we know the processes and key insights very deeply. We have an extensive level of expertise to offer. We know other key elements inside out, such as price lists, discount frameworks and structures. We know how internal auditors work and practices, and we certainly don't leave clients alone with a SAM report or a SAM tool. We're very much wrapping around all our technology and services those SAP expertise. So carrying on with the S4HANA license negotiation topic. So SAP considers S4HANA to be a brand new product. That's one of the most key things that we need to remember, is that there is no legal right to migrate to S4 as if it were a new version or release of classic ERP. It's not the legal successor for SAP Business Suite ERP. It's a completely new product. SAP expect you to buy that product, but as we'll discuss through the webinar, they do provide various different frameworks to help customers make that journey. SAP have recently extended support maintenance for ERP till 2027, so that does impact planning, timeframes, and the kind of urgency of looking at S4HANA migration. Customers do have more time to plan their migration and find, or of course, find alternative support maintenance solutions for their existing SAP landscapes. But of course, customers should start preparing accordingly and consider the best options for negotiating S4HANA license agreements. For customers looking to act ahead of the curve and take advantage of the technical and functional benefits of the S4HANA suite, now there couldn't be a better time economically to take advantage of negotiation opportunities. So customers really looking to drive their businesses onto S4HANA should really be starting to look at preparing now. In S4HANA, some existing transaction codes won't be available. Some new transactions which weren't previously featured in classic ERP will be introduced. So it's important also that customers are looking at S4HANA migration from a technical standpoint as well, in terms of migrating the role and authorizations concept rather than simply drag and drop. There's lots of changes to consider technically within the S4HANA landscape. Many ERP modules are changing. We'll go into some of those. The finance module is a great example, and SAP Fiori apps, for example, will also require additional authorizations to work properly in the S4HANA environment. SAP does provide quite extensive documentation around S4HANA. This particular documentation, the simplification list for S4HANA 1909, which is the latest release. This is the initial shipment stack document. It's over 1,000 pages, and it covers each and every S4 application component, including dozens of pages on other aspects of S4HANA migration, such as the compatibility packs for existing SAP solutions. And we'll go into compatibility packs in a bit more detail as we go through this. Yes, but we also have to be aware that in this document, it goes through all the technical changes in terms of the various different authorizations updates as well. If you fancy some bedtime reading, there's a 1,000-page document for you to go through if you're really interested to learn deeply. But that's why we are here. We read this stuff for you, and we condense it into the key stuff that you need to know. And of course, that's what we're going to be covering as we continue the webinar. So key challenges that customers face: digital transformation. Customers are going to have new architecture, and they've got to consider new license models around the various different implementations, technical implementations of S4HANA Cloud, on-premise and hybrid solutions. Looking at conversion of licenses to S4, we've got product conversion and contract conversion options on the table, two completely different models to serve customers on different migration paths. Transparency of licensing models and costs. We obviously have a brand new price list that people aren't really familiar with because they haven't been buying S4HANA products for years. So these pricing models and cost structures will be relatively new. So we have economic considerations of cost considerations, i.e. the cost of migration. We've got to look at the relative cost of new S4HANA versus old license costs, and what is the total cost of ownership in terms of migrating and then using S4HANA in the future. Controlling our cost base, so are we able to right size maintenance through the process? Do over licensed customers have an opportunity to reduce cost or optimize their cost base with a better fit S4HANA solution? Will OpEx costs increase if we migrate to S4HANA? Indirect and digital access and other confusions around NetWeaver for third-party applications and how digital access will impact the requirement to license third-party integrations. Expiry of maintenance in 2027. So looking at my migration planning and negotiation timing is critical to make sure that customers are ahead of the curve and migrating their environments in good time for the expiry of maintenance in 2027. And finally, database costs. Obviously, S4 runs exclusively on the HANA database, which is SAP's new in-memory database platform. There is obviously a multitude of database licensing options which come with relative different features and use cases. So it's really important that we right fit that and right size licensing of the HANA database as well. And we will cover HANA database licensing as well later on. So key cost considerations before migrating to S4HANA. So we want to evaluate and estimate the following things: performing a full functional analysis, so looking at data sources, exports, geodata, integrations, and basically understanding the whole picture of what it is that we're actually, taking up and moving over and migrating to the S4 environment. Performing a full architecture analysis, so looking at other deeper technical things like backup, disaster recovery, and the requirement across the business for high availability and service levels from the software, particularly if we are looking at moving to various different S4HANA Cloud solutions and products. Looking to achieve full transparency on costs. So of course, it's not so straightforward as classic ERP pricing. It's a totally new and unfamiliar price list and pricing structures. So requesting pricing, transparent pricing information around all the HANA versions, including runtime, full use, on-premise and cloud. Ask for transparency on volume discounting, understanding pricing models for different products and optimal purchasing points for each. We actually did a really good pricing webinar recently where we went into some of the key issues and concerns around volume discounting, including the various different volume discount models they have, where your key purchasing points are, and how it may be cheaper, in fact, to buy a higher volume of a certain product in the next tier. So there's various different pricing considerations that you need to be aware of and able to be able to buy efficiently and optimally when you're negotiating with SAP. Significant cost-saving opportunities are available when migrating your contracts to S4. So we have the opportunity to trade in shelfware. So that's products sitting on the shelf not in use, or products that were in use that are no longer being used by the business. So we can get rid of all that and trade that stuff in for a brand new S4HANA bill of material. We can optimize user licensing. So it's a great opportunity just to completely resize and reevaluate the user licensing opportunities that you have. Of course, one of the things we do with samQ is we can not only optimize user licensing, making sure that users are classified with the cheapest available compliant license type. We can then migrate that optimal position to the corresponding S4HANA license types. And that's something customers really need to do to make sure they're optimizing their user licensing costs for that future S4 contract. Mitigating digital access, most certainly the most efficient way to license indirect use will be via the digital access licensing model, certainly when migrating to S4HANA, and customers really should be looking at addressing digital access now and understanding their indirect usage profile. So what applications are consuming and using data from SAP, and what is the future cost implication of that when we're migrating to digital access. Of course, as we've discussed, buying the right HANA licenses. So basically that evolves around building the right use cases for your business. There are dozens of license models and variations for the HANA database. So again, looking at the use cases for the business and what the business needs from the HANA database platform, and then buying the corresponding license model at the right price. Choosing the migration path carefully. So again, understanding how the business is going to build, deploy, and roll out S4HANA. So that those business plans will certainly affect whether you choose product or contract conversion. Improving contract terms. So if you're stuck on legacy terms that are not really serving the needs of your business today, you have the opportunity to identify all of those and basically clean that up when you negotiate a new S4HANA contract. You most certainly should be looking at terms and conditions that suit the current and future needs of your business. Maximizing discount levels. So basically, apologies, we're going a bit fast. Maximizing discount levels. So when you're negotiating a high value transaction with SAP, that gives you the opportunity to buy in volume and take advantage of bulk discount pricing structures, and we can maximize the amount of discount we're getting off the SAP software. And taking advantage of all the concessions and credits that are available to customers who want to migrate. These can make migrating to S4HANA a very attractive option when, for example, if you're looking to go to S4HANA Cloud and you're comparatively RFPing SAP against Oracle, well, if you're going to buy Oracle Cloud, for example, you're unlikely to get any credit for your existing SAP licenses, whereas such models are available for migrating SAP to SAP. So taking advantage of those and understanding them fully and how to leverage those concessions and credits when you're in a negotiation situation, just making sure you maximize value gleaned from those negotiations. Inviting key stakeholders is obviously key when we're starting the S4 conversation. So the business, they want to implement the latest technology, improve efficiency and streamline business processes, and that would be key towards building an S4HANA blueprint. Non-SAP applications owners, they want their software to work with SAP, and certainly if you want to deploy non-SAP applications along with SAP applications on HANA database, you would be looking for a full use HANA database license to be able to do that. So again, understanding what non-SAP application owners want from their architecture in the future is key, because you can satisfy their needs as well. SAP basis and security, they want to maintain roles and assign licenses correctly. Procurement, obviously incentivized to get good discounts and control IT purchasing costs. And the technical kind of data migration teams, they're focused on technical migration of data and applications and minimizing business disruption. Migrating your S4HANA contract, if you follow some key processes, then you will obviously you'll get the optimal outcome from your negotiations with SAP. This is our tried and tested methodology. So starting off with the contract history and bill of material, looking at your history of purchase and your license inventory, that gets you a base position of where you are today and what products it is that you have to negotiate with, the value of those products, and what it is that you want to trade in, what you want to keep, what you want to, if you want to convert that to fully to an S4 contract, if you want to do product per product line item conversion, that's a good place to start in terms of making those key migration decisions. Analysis of license utilization. Well, the best way of doing that is using a SAM tool. We obviously have one called samQ. And so there's one thing, having your bill of material and inventory is one thing, but when you measure your actual use, what you really should be doing is looking at your actual usage blueprint today and how would you license SAP today if you could rebuy the software today. And that's based on how you are using the software and your current use and deployment of SAP. So you can actually do that using a SAM tool, and you can build that picture. And in fact, that's more aligned to what you should be negotiating out of your S4HANA agreements in the future. And that certainly will show you the delta between what you need and what you don't need from that existing contract position that you've already built up at the start of the process. So digital access assessment and planning, that's another thing that samQ can do. So looking at your digital document count, understanding your business processes and what the digital document implications are for your business. For example, discrete manufacturing businesses might find that they are generating relatively a low volume of digital documents, and you might find fast-moving consumer goods and retail businesses relatively generating a high volume of digital documents. So it's very important, industry sector, industry vertical, to understand your business processes and understand if digital document or digital access, what's the cost implication of that going forward. So doing a proper evaluation and measurement of that is pretty key to have that data and insight to drive your discussions with SAP at the negotiation table. Qualitative demand analysis, so looking at what software we're using and what we're going to be using in the future. So doing future planning in terms of how product usage and patterns of product use have increased over time. So not just planning to buy what we need today, but planning for what the business will need in the next 3 to 5 years. Quantitative demand analysis and rollout planning. This would be the demand for new software products, so not existing quantities of existing software solutions, and looking at rollout planning in terms of how we're going to deploy the software going forward. If we have 5,000 user environment and we're rolling out to another 10,000 users over 5 years, do we really need to buy now, or can we phase the purchase of certain products to suit those rollout plans and potentially save millions of pounds on licensing costs and corresponding maintenance and support fees? So doing that rollout planning and corresponding that to your purchasing strategy is pretty vital stuff. Database planning and DB add-ons, so looking at performance measurement of actual database sizes and estimation of future requirements, comparing the runtime versions, and again we'll go into that in more detail, with the enterprise versions of the HANA database and what the business really needs. Overbuying on your DB and not right sizing your database software or purchase can be not only costly upfront, but the corresponding maintenance costs associated with overbuying on your database solution, that can be quite costly. Determination of custom contract clauses. So that's really business, business case or business vertical. What are the needs of your business? What do you need the software to do? What key business processes is it supporting? Do you operate in many different countries? Do you need the requirement to roll out quickly and deploy in other territories without clumsy restrictions in the contract? So really looking at things like metric caps, payment methods, cloud conversion, metric agreements or metric standardization, and other things like audit conditions. Do you need respite to kind of implement and run the software for a certain period of time before SAP can come and audit you? So looking at things like that. We've even seen and negotiated things like maintenance holidays. So if you agree to purchase a software upfront in advance of when you intend to deploy it, could you get a maintenance break and only start paying fees once a solution has been deployed and rolled out? So many different custom clauses to be negotiated. And again, we know this stuff inside out, and that's something we can help SAP customers take advantage of. So looking at the S4 environment, S4HANA licensing, certainly on-premise, is comprised of 4 key building blocks. You've got user access, digital access, HANA database, and line of business and industry-specific solutions. Again, that specific quadrant is always going to be relative to each business sector, or in terms of how broadly customers have rolled out SAP and what solutions they need. We have transition paths. So first of all, we have the cloud extension path, and that's for customers doing new implementations only. And that is for customers doing new implementations of SAP S4HANA Cloud. We have ERP conversions to S4HANA on-premise installations via, first of all, your product conversion method or your contract conversion method. I could go into these in more detail, but we do have specific slides on these three approaches later in the webinar. But just to show you, calling out from what I reflected on at the beginning of the webinar, is that you do have various different paths depending on whether you're a new customer, whether you're a new customer to S4, whether you're a new customer to S4HANA Cloud, or an existing customer going to S4HANA on-premise, and you have two different paths for those existing customer scenarios as well. So here we have S4.
Sorry, one remark
Yes.
to this last slide. If you could put it again, there is something that might be misleading in this slide that comes originally from SAP. There, where you're reading new implementation only, what in reality is meant is a greenfield implementation. So there is no automatized path to migrate your customizing, your configuration of an ECC system directly into an S4HANA Cloud version, which also has a different functionality as of today. So new implementation means this is not only for new clients. You can move over to S4HANA Cloud. You can be rewarded for having purchased licenses in the past, but it is a greenfield implementation.
Thanks, Francisco. Very, very valid points there. So here we're just taking a closer look. I think I skipped a slide there. Hang on. Apologies. There we go. So we have S4HANA licensing for existing ERP customers. Two quite straightforward diagrams. I will flick between them just to show you the various respective differences, and I will explain them accordingly. So existing ERP customers will already have licensed SAP ERP, and they will already have a suite of named user license types at various different quantities. Of course, customers moving from ERP to S4 will need to migrate onto the HANA database, and will have to avail of various extended solution scope products like S4HANA Cash Management, Central Finance, Advanced Variant Configuration, and S4 Digital Access, and of course avail of some commercially neutral solutions like Global Trade Management and Manufacturer Integration. If we have a look at the model for new customers would be buying slightly differently. The main difference is that we're not migrating from an existing classic ERP solution, and we don't have to migrate users. So customers buying who are new to S4HANA, they would simply be buying the HANA database. They would be purchasing S4 Enterprise Management on a user metric. There is a flat fee for purchasing S4HANA Enterprise Management of €9,000, and then the applicable user metric applies for the number of users. Extended solution scopes, they are all licensed on an engine basis, and customers do not need user licenses to access. They are based on an engine metric only. And the S4HANA Enterprise Management, which is referred to as the digital core, that is licensed on a metric based on different user profile types like professional user, productivity user, and functional user. Just digging into that in a bit more detail, we're looking at the different functional areas of SAP like sales and marketing, finance, manufacturing, supply chain, services, asset management, R&D, sourcing, procurement, and human resources. Right there at the S4HANA core, enterprise management, you can see the different functionality that S4 offers at the core. So you've got order and contract management, Salesforce support, accounting and finance, financial operations, cost management and profitability analysis. Under manufacturing, you things like production planning, quality management, and manufacturing insights. And then beyond the core S4HANA solution, that's where you find the S4 line of business solutions, which you can license on the engine metric basis. And beyond the S4HANA line of business solutions, right on the periphery of that, you have suite line of business solutions. So that would be existing SAP Business Suite software solutions, and they would require those compatibility packs to work in harmony with the S4HANA core. So basically, you have to understand what is offered at the core of S4HANA, what you have to purchase as an additional engine around S4HANA line of business solutions, and beyond what hasn't been built. So what solutions haven't yet been produced for S4HANA, you have to look at any additional business suite solutions you're going to have to be able to integrate and use with your S4HANA installation. Here we have the S4HANA user access matrix. So they have simplified the user licensing structure. So you really have 4 core license types. You've got developer access, productivity use, functional use, and professional use. And each user will fall into one of those 4 categories. You can see that productivity use is inclusive of the rights for functional use, and similar for functional use is included in the professional use profile. So basically what you have to do when you're transitioning from Classic to S4HANA is you have to be migrating your existing user license types into the new S4HANA types. We can go forward and look a little bit more into the mapping. So here's a kind of generic mapping. Obviously, it's very user agreement specific and use right agreement specific. This is a mapping of today's price list user types, but some customers might be familiar with some other types of named user license from Classic ERP. Here we have a simple mapping of the corresponding type in S4HANA. And of course, you need to be able to do that to estimate what line items to purchase. So you will have to buy quantities of developer access, professional user access, functional and productivity respectively. So being able to map your existing user license profile into S4HANA is critically important. Now, reflecting on this and drawing back to the conversation about product and contract conversion, if you have, it really depends on what your user license bill of material is. If you're doing a contract conversion and your current bill of material is full of cheaper license types, you're only getting a value-based conversion on contract. So it's like for like contract value. You get to swap the contract value for the respective value of licenses in S4. With product conversion, we've seen SAP negotiating with customers a direct line-for-line mapping of user types. Now, if you can imagine, if you've got cheaper license types, here I'll give you an example. You've got employee self-service user right in the middle of the diagram. That corresponds to a HANA productivity user, which is actually a higher value license type. So if you're getting a line mapping from self-service user to productivity user on a simple quantity for quantity basis, you're actually getting better value than you would if you were doing contract conversion. So these are all the interesting nuances that you would have to consider. That's what we talked about at the very beginning, is looking at your bill of material and your bill of material value respectively for SAP engines and SAP named user licenses. And that could impact how you decide to migrate, whether you want to do a product conversion or a contract conversion. And the best way, of course, to help you make that decision is to do a TCO. So do a cost modeling exercise to look at the respective cost benefits of one approach versus the other. Here is just a quick example of how we do it using samQ. So we use our S4HANA user license templates, and as samQ is already, for customers using samQ, it's already running in the background. It's already classifying and optimizing users. So the user bill of material has already been optimized, and samQ already knows what each and every user is doing. samQ can then map what each customer is doing from a functional perspective to which S4HANA license type they would need in the new S4HANA environment. And there you have a ready-made mapping, and you know what your corresponding S4HANA user bill of material would be. And that's something that if you're running samQ, that can be done relatively easily and quickly, and it gives you fantastic insights to start your discussion on what S4HANA bill of material you're going to be negotiating with SAP, and of course making sure you're optimizing the cost of doing so, making sure you optimize the user licensing for that new contract agreement. A little bit on to those compatibility packs that we discussed a little earlier on. So a compatibility pack, which if you have any compatibility pack relative products, they will be denoted by CP at the end of the product description on your bill of material, and they'll appear as CP on SAP's price list. But Compatibility Pack is a version of a standard SAP Business Suite software product that is compatible with SAP S4HANA. So it isn't the same product. It is a tweaked version of an existing product that has been made to work with new S4HANA. And that, if we reflect back on the discussion about core S4HANA, line of business solutions, and on the periphery of that, you've got your suite line of business solutions. It's those products that you would need those compatibility packs for to make them work with core S4HANA. So standard SAP Business Suite software product cannot run on the SAP S4HANA installation. You can find a full compatibility pack scope in SAP's SAP S4HANA feature scope description document. It's another 600 pages of fun reading if you fancy reading that. You can go to www.help.sap.com and you can get a separate compatibility pack matrix. So customers that have licensed CP relevant Business Suite software, they can obtain the rights to use the S4HANA compatibility version at no additional license fee. So if you've already bought the product and SAP haven't yet made the S4HANA version, you can start using the CP version at no additional license fee. And that basically helps allow business continuity with S4HANA customers. Mainly that applies to customers who are going down the product conversion migration path. And SAP may be developing comparable business software functionality for S4HANA in parallel. So full S4 versions of any given suite product may be released in the future. Here is a picture or an extract of the S4HANA Compatibility Pack matrix. So you can see there are over 100 Compatibility Pack relevant solutions available. Some of those include payroll processing for non-profit, EHS management, remote logistics control, merchandising for retail, and financial closing cockpit. These all have CP versions available until SAP have developed a full S4HANA solution. You have various different flavors of CP. So you've got universal CPs that can be used with any release of S4. You've got limited CPs that may only be used with certain releases. And on the outskirts of that, Vistex CPs, which may only be used on S4HANA installations that are using release 1610 specifically. So again, just understanding which version or release of S4HANA we're looking at and what compatibility pack products are relevant or can be used. Here we have the S4HANA compatibility pack roadmap. So we have S4HANA launch back in 2015. We're looking up to the future in 2025. CP use rights are going to exist until the end of 2025. It's highly likely you're going to see an extension of that to correspond with the maintenance extension. So SAP will probably allow customers to use CP relevant products until the end of 2027, but currently 2025. A new S4HANA solution may be developed in parallel and may be made available before the end of 2025. So basically, as soon as the full S4HANA version of a compatibility pack software product is developed and made available, you can then migrate to the full S4HANA solution. In parallel to the development of the full S4HANA suite, you've got the existence of CP and equivalent S4HANA solution products, and Business Suite and standard solution, Business Suite standard solution, can be used in parallel as well. So you can be running Business Suite software that has an S4HANA equivalent. You can be using those in parallel if need be, and you sit with the architectural solution for that is that the two solutions are connected to one another, and the HANA version of that product that's being used in parallel basically shares the same data and the same data profile, so the products are basically mirrored and being used in parallel. A bit more on product conversion. So customers, basically the boundary conditions of product-based conversion. So that's converting one product line item at a time and looking respectively if we're purchasing an S4HANA solution if we're purchasing a compatibility pack, or if we need to, a line of business solution, or if we need to buy a compatibility pack license to use a business suite product in conjunction with our S4HANA installation. So the customer would keep the same contractual agreement, so that the conversion would be based on the existing software agreements. And we cannot convert into products you do not already own. So that's like for like product conversion. That's why we call it line item conversion. It requires line item mapping from one product, one classic solution, to the corresponding S4 product. Customers are entitled to 100% credit in 2019, although that is to be determined for 2020. Maintenance base always carries, so for product conversion, you can't reduce your maintenance base. It's a line item kind of value for value, like for like conversion, and it may not be reduced when you're converting one product to the S4 equivalent. There are no partial conversions. Conversions are always 100%, so you have to trade in your old product fully when you're purchasing the new version. It can be cloud. It can be combined with cloud extension if you're going for a hybrid architecture. And no conversion is allowed for SAP named users, with a few exceptions, which include retail banking, healthcare, clinical, and some industry named users are converted when a respective S4HANA engine product. If you remember, we discussed that some S4HANA line of business solutions, they are licensed on an engine-based metric. So some industry-specific user license types may no longer be relevant because user licenses are not required for accessing those solutions. So those SAP will consider an exception on the named user conversion policy. Benefits of product conversion: it permits a step-by-step conversion, so you can actually migrate. It's more of a journey and it's more of a process, and you can take it step by step, and you don't have to make any major contractual changes on the spot. It focuses on converting to line of business and engine solutions with S4 equivalent products, and there's no need to license your entire SAP landscape. You can take advantage of those 100% line item credits. So as long as you're only using the same functionality, the same level of functionality in S4, you don't have to buy additional entitlements for those S4HANA products. Of course, you have to be aware that if you are going above and beyond the functional scope of your existing solution, you may have to purchase additional levels of entitlement for those S4HANA products. Customers can still leverage their existing classic applications until 2025, even after converting them into S4HANA. So that's actually, of course, whilst you're making the migration journey, you've converted a product into the S4HANA, so you no longer have a license for the classic solution, but you can still use it because you have licensed the S4HANA version, and you can continue to do that until 2025, by which point you would have to have migrated fully over to S4.
Jan, one remark here. This should be now 2027, right? Since they have extended the migration period.
That's actually right. Yep, that's simply a typo. We haven't updated. Yep, 2027, yeah. As we mentioned before, you can use your classic solutions having converted those products into the relevant S4HANA product license. You would be able to continue using those products until the 2027 cutoff point. Thanks, Francisco. Cloud extension, subscription of new cloud licenses is required. Selected SAP cloud solutions can be converted. When you're doing cloud conversion, you're basically looking at the on-premise licenses you have and getting credit for your new cloud subscriptions. So that's something that has to be managed carefully. You have to forecast your demand for new cloud solutions in terms of pricing and cost, and you have to look at what credits available for the old on-premise version of that product when extending or converting into the cloud. Requires a bit of an expanded investment with cloud solutions from SAP, but you do have added value from this kind of hybrid scenario, and you do have to subscribe for up to 5 years at a time in terms of the contract term for cloud solutions. Both the cloud subscriptions and contract and partial terminations represent one commercial transaction, so it's a simple start and stop. You basically relinquish your rights to use the classic solution and once you've subscribed to the cloud solution, you have to migrate and start using that. So obviously data migration onto the new cloud platform, go live and cut over is going to be crucial to limit business disruption. So that's key things to think about. Customer benefits, obviously it's very flexible and scalable, and new functions are available through cloud solutions from SAP all the time. It's something they're investing in, so you're going to get maximum value from the maintenance payments you're paying by way of new functional availability for those cloud solutions. It's simple and it's quick. Most cloud solutions are easier to customize and more standardized in terms of business process, so scalability is much more straightforward. And solutions can be easily deployed and sized for companies of any size and any usage profile in terms of how they were using on-premise SAP. Also, investments are protected to an extent, so SAP removed barriers to leverage cloud innovations, so you've got seamless delivery and support across hybrid landscapes. So if you are running certain solutions on ERP and you are running certain solutions in the cloud, you can expect to get the absolute same, if not extended level of support from SAP to keep those cloud solutions up and running and make sure there isn't any business disruption. Contract conversion, it's intended for a wholesale conversion of your contract. That's looking at you'd basically look at the bill of material value of your current estate. You'd look at creating a bill of material for S4HANA, and if S4HANA is the bill of material is worth more, then you would pay a true up to negotiate that brand new S4HANA agreement. So if you're looking to build and deploy S4HANA quickly and then perhaps roll out S4 globally, then a contract conversion could potentially be a more attractive way of just switching over in terms of licensing. It's a one-time event. The customer migrates to the new S4HANA software use rights and they lose all their old contractual conditions. So again, a great point to negotiate brand new, custom terms and conditions. It doesn't require line item mapping because all you do is you take the value of the old BOM, you take the value of the new bill of material, and it's a straight negotiation of what you pay for the new S4HANA licenses that you need. The old contracts are all basically binned, they're terminated and stopped, and all your contracts, all your order forms, all your products and the addendums to your agreement will now be all in the new S4HANA. Maximum credit is either the lesser of 100% of the current maintenance base or 90% of the new license fee eligible software. So basically what's going to happen is you're either going to be going like for like maintenance base. If S4 is worth less than your current estate, SAP will be, if you take advantage of this method, you would be maintaining the same maintenance base. And if the S4HANA bill of material was worth more, the max credit you can get is 90%, which would mean a 10% increase in the running cost of S4HANA. So again, whether it's product or contract conversion, you really have to do your cost modeling to understand which is the best way to go forward. So the benefits of that is moving to the kind of next generation ERP and in-memory database technology, the potential to reconfigure your landscape and eliminate shelfware, and basically re-architect your business processes, so streamline your existing business processes using new S4HANA and simplifying your S4HANA contracts. HANA database licensing options.
Yeah, I'd like to stop you there a second because sure. These three last slides were some of the most interesting things and at the same time some of the most complicated things.
Indeed.
If we are in front of an S4HANA migration consideration, let's say, I can do a product conversion, I can migrate my whole contract, or I can move to the cloud. So at first, when I see this, what are the main differences? I mean, if you say I'm migrating my whole, the same set of products that I have today to the same set of products on S4HANA, no changing anything, should I go for the product conversion or should I go for the contract conversion? And what are the differences there? Why should I take one way or the other? Can you elaborate on that?
No, absolutely. I think one of the key things is understanding what your existing bill of material is and what your new S4HANA bill of material will be. Basically doing a careful consideration of product versus contract conversion. It all really comes down to cost and convenience. What is the most suitable migration path? How are you going to be deploying S4HANA in the future? Are you going to want to do it slowly and steadily in a kind of phased, stepped process? Or do you want to keep your existing contractual rights and convert product for product as you go? Or do you just want to sit down at the negotiation table and negotiate a brand new, S4HANA contract? It all comes down to, what your migration and rollout plans will be, and it will all come down to cost and looking carefully at the cost of each migration path respectively.
I think some of the things after doing some of those migrations with clients and negotiations with clients that I've discovered is shelfware is a big decision criterion here. If you have like 30% of unused products on your bill of materials with SAP, at the first moment, this is definitely an argument to go for the contract conversion, because this is the only way you will get rid of them. But it is more complicated than that. In fact, you got to do the math and calculate what comes out, because as Jan said before, if you've got 30,000, let's say, employees as service users now converting to maybe productivity users, it might be that this turns the math towards the product conversion. So it is important to do the math here and consider these things. We are getting a question here from one of the participants. He's asking about this last sentence on the left side. No conversion for SAP named users. What does that mean? Does it mean if I do a product conversion, I'm not getting enterprise management for productivity use, functional use? Am I keeping my old clients? How is it, Jan?
Well, the product conversion is supposed to be for product to product, like for like conversion from Classic to S4HANA. SAP as standard don't offer named user product conversion, although, like I said, there are exceptions to that. So you have to consider if you're very line of business heavy or line of business specific, or if you do have a lot of standard named user license types. If you've got a lot of standard named user license types, again, product conversion might not be the path for you. Might be better leveraging the value of those licenses and doing a contract conversion. If, of course, you have any line of business solution orientated and you've got a lot of named user license types around these functional, functional software verticals, you have the opportunity in product-based conversion to translate some of those into engine-based entitlements for the new respective S4HANA line of business solutions. So again, if you're looking at the relative weighting between your different user license type mix, there certainly are so many different variables to it. You have to look specifically at the user mix that you have and what products you're going to be converting to S4HANA. And again, it just comes down to each customer's individual circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget, these are the guidelines and the policies. And then there is negotiations, which allows you to do basically everything if you know how to do it. Now, we are being asked about grace periods for the contract conversion. Jan already went into that. If you implement S4HANA today, you may still be using your old systems for the next, 7 years almost, until 2027. Problem there, by the way, is there is no clear way on how to cope with your audits. SAP hasn't been publishing anything about that. So if you have two systems and tomorrow they come and audit your S4HANA system and your old ECC system, which one counts? And what happens if you're not able to consolidate those users? you're only setting up new users on the S4HANA system, etc., etc. So there are things you really need to be discussing about. We are also simplifying very much if you move over to the cloud conversion, the cloud situation. What do we have there? We can move to S4HANA Cloud and change to a new platform that hasn't got the same functionality, by far not. It does have some interesting additions, but you can't on the public version of S4HANA Cloud do relevant customizations, and you have to cope with SAP's update cycles. On the private version, which is your own version, so to say, your own instance of SAP on SAP's cloud, you have more influence on that. But then there is the possibility to use your on-premise version and put it on SAP servers. What is it called again? HEC. I always forget what it stands for. No, I don't get to it. This is basically SAP's hosting solution where you move. You have two chances. You just bring your own license, so you take your own on-premise license and bring it over to SAP's own servers, or you make a combined purchase of licenses, including management and hosting, which is difficult if you don't get your key account manager to separate pricing, so that you can really compare it to other providers, other big hosting providers like DXC or whoever is on the market. Yeah, this to sum up, and we are coming to the end, I fear. We still have some more things.
Almost.
You want to present some additional things, let it be here. How do you want to go on with this, Jan?
Well, the last elements was to look at HANA database licensing. You can go to voquzlabs to see these exact slides. You can go to voquzlabs YouTube channel, and you can look at our HANA database licensing explainer video. Very easy to find. Just search for voquzlabs on YouTube, and you'll find the video there. I can whiz through it for those who are interested to hang about for a minute or two. So Express Edition is free to use, up to 64 gigabytes of memory. You have various different flavors of Runtime Edition, which is where you're only licensing the HANA database for SAP software. And you have the full use versions, which are the kind of full use standard edition, and the enterprise edition, which includes a lot more of the HANA database platform functionality as a standard. So yeah, runtime is for SAP applications, full use standard and enterprise for SAP and non-SAP. Runtime is sold on an HSAB metric, so it's a percentage of the value of the SAP application stack that will be running on the HANA database, whereas standard and enterprise edition kind of full use licenses are licensed based on blocks of 64 gigabytes of memory. So you pay a respective license fee for every 64 gig of memory you will be using running the HANA database. Interestingly, the enterprise edition comes with all of these these are core price list items for HANA database, so data privacy, data replication, predictive analytics, search and text, streamlining analytics. These are all core analytics functionality within the HANA database platform. They come as standard with HANA Enterprise Edition, and they don't come as standard with the other versions of the HANA database. So prices starting at 120,000 per block of entitlement, and the highest volume tier goes down to 15,000 euros per block. And the standard edition, you can purchase them as add-ons. So you can see that per 64 gigabyte block, you're starting at 40,000 euro per block. But each of these additional components or add-ons that you buy with the standard edition, you would pay 20,000 per block as a starting price per 65 gig memory for each of these add-ons. So as soon as you start to get to 3 or 4 of these add-ons, you might want to consider if upgrading to enterprise is actually more cost effective. So we talked at the very beginning about use case mapping to HANA database right sizing. This is exactly why you would need to do that. Here is a matrix. Oh, excuse me. we'll run that on small screen mode. Seems to be a slight glitch with that, but this matrix basically shows us the relative differences between runtime for BW only, runtime for BW and SAP applications. You can see the functional differences in what's included in the license. Critically, with the full use, you see a big empty block for the HANA database extensions. That's the kind of price list relevant, add-on packages. They are not included for standard, but you can see they are all included and more when you purchase the enterprise edition. So it's very use case specific. Then we can go on to looking at the final slides, which really just contemplate authorizations.
Yeah, sorry, one interruption here, because one of the participants is asking, what do our clients do? Do they go more for the runtime version, or do they go more for the full use version?
Yep.
Now, this is only an impression. I haven't really done statistics, and I see more clients using the runtime application, but we also have quite a lot of clients using the other one. So more runtime. It's still my impression, maybe a third of them using full use. What is your impression, Jan?
Yeah, at the moment we're definitely seeing more customers going for runtime. A relative mix between straight runtime for BW and BW and SAP applications. Customers who are going that step-by-step conversion tend to buy the HANA database because they are, first of all, some customers are running ECC on HANA before they migrate their ERP to the S4 suite. So you can actually run ECC on HANA and leverage the HANA database platform functionality there. So customers are doing that step-by-step approach, sometimes opting for the runtime version. As you can imagine, if you're going for a big bang full contract conversion, you might well get more value going for the enterprise edition, where you have the upfront right to use all of the HANA database features. You can integrate at the database level and not just the application layer, which is a restriction you have with runtime. And of course, you can be deploying non-SAP applications on there as well. So that's really a kind of long-term applications architecture decision. So those are, again, like what Francisco said, those are generic observations. We don't have statistics to share on the relative, customers in different scenarios and what HANA database solutions that customers have purchased. But that might be something we can look at, doing in the future if customers are interested to know peer-to-peer what other customers are doing and what database decisions customers are making. We can certainly look into that and produce some more content on that in the future. What do you think, Francisco?
Definitely, this is something interesting to be talking about and to be doing statistics of, especially because of the complex price model with and discount tiers with the full use versions. So it's a complicated decision for most clients in the beginning, and it tends to be the case that the full use version is relevantly more expensive. So it's an important decision to take at the beginning of the project and when doing your scenarios. Also, now we are talking about that, I'm seeing more and more contracts where clients are paying for every single product of SAP a 15% for the database on top of it, plus a 15% for HANA. So if you were working on Oracle in the past and now you're moving to HANA, I think this is not an acceptable solution. I agree with SAP in an appropriate contract configuration where you will only be paying for one of both databases, but it can't happen that you have you're buying one professional license and then you pay 15% on top of that for HANA plus 15% for Oracle. I've already seen 3 of those examples. Try to avoid that, negotiate that with SAP, don't get there.
Yeah, absolutely. There are, if you look at the S4HANA, the if you look at SAP's current price list, there are actually 13 different flavors of runtime license alone. You know, we looked at some of those different flavors, but you have things like active read-only for BW, so that's only a runtime license for the use of BW data only, read-only, so not actually you know, updating or leveraging that data in other applications. So there is so many different flavors you have to consider. It's not as simple as just saying runtime versus enterprise or standard versus enterprise. There are far more use cases to be considered within each of those kind of vertical HANA database solution offerings. But enough about HANA database for now, unless we have any other questions, Francisco. Come in on that.
No, I'm good, and I fear we're quite over time already with almost 10 minutes.
We still have 90% of attendees, so obviously that last segment holding people's attention for now anyway. Migrating your authorizations concept to S4HANA. Excuse me. So that's something you need to do as part of your migration process. You'll need to look at existing roles, the current use of transactions within the classic ERP transaction scope, looking at your in-house development. So what custom transactions have you developed, and are they going to have to be replaced in the new S4HANA environment? Performing an impact analysis and looking at planning your actual technical migration will be critical in terms of getting a seamless go live. What it really boils down to is people getting the access they need and be able to perform their job roles by having the appropriate roles and authorizations. So you can imagine that it's critical that you migrate your existing role concept to new S4HANA pretty seamlessly in order to minimize business disruption. Brownfield or greenfield S4 role design. You can do a brownfield, so you can migrate, or you can just build new from scratch and allocate users new access roles based on the kind of brand new S4HANA role design. And that is supported, something that we can do with our samQ solution. So we have a role referencing template and extension manager for ERP and S4HANA roles. Very technical process, but we are able to basically look at new S4HANA role structures and do an optimal migration of existing role concepts with some fine tuning and optimization on the way to get them S4HANA ready. Or of course, we can scrap the old and just do a brand new kind of greenfield build of S4HANA roles. So if you want to keep your business ticking over and running post S4HANA migration, certainly role and authorizations is something you're going to have to look at quite closely. And thank you for watching. If you want to follow our new LinkedIn page, that's where you'll get the latest updates on new voquzlabs content, webinars, articles, explainer videos. You'll see them all coming out there, and that's always nice to pop onto your mobile phone screen some nice new and interesting content to read from voquzlabs. Yes, thank you again for your help, Francisco. It's been a pleasure doing another webinar with you.
It's a pleasure. Same again, and thank you everyone for attending. We'll take care. There is one last question. Is there a way to start with runtime and later go to full use? Yes and no. There is a way, but there is no defined way. So basically, you have to negotiate with SAP how far they will award you for what you have already paid with runtime. There is no defined way so far to do that. So again, a point to be negotiating with them. So thank you very much, everyone. We wish you a successful day, and sorry for keeping you up so long.
Yes.
Take care. We'll be glad to answer further questions if you have them. And as Jan said, look upon our pages, and we'll be offering more interesting technical videos or webinars about licensing. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.